Most people believe a new year automatically brings a fresh beginning. They wait for the date to change, expecting new opportunities, better luck, or a different reality. But look around. Every year, millions of people make resolutions, set ambitious goals, and promise themselves that this time everything will be different. Yet only a small percentage experience lasting change. Why? Because time alone doesn't change people. A different date cannot create a different identity. The truth is much deeper than that. Real transformation begins the moment your inner world changes. Long before your circumstances shift, something inside you quietly starts reorganizing itself. Your priorities evolve. Your emotional reactions soften. The things that once consumed your attention suddenly lose their power. Goals that once seemed urgent no longer feel meaningful. At first, this feels confusing. You wonder why you're losing motivation. You question whether you're becoming lazy or directionless. But what if that's not what's happening at all? What if your mind isn't shutting down? What if it's upgrading? Every major transformation begins with a period where the old version of you stops making sense. This isn't failure. It's transition. For years, your brain has been operating through familiar routines. It learned what to expect based on yesterday's experiences. It created habits, emotional reactions, and automatic behaviors that kept your life predictable. Your subconscious values familiarity more than possibility. Even when your current reality isn't ideal, it still feels safe because it's known. That's why genuine change often feels uncomfortable. You're not only trying to build something new, you're asking your nervous system to release what has kept you emotionally secure for years. And that never happens overnight. Psychologists often explain that our brains constantly predict tomorrow using yesterday's information. We don't simply experience reality. We interpret it through patterns we've repeated thousands of times. Those patterns become our identity. Eventually, we stop asking, "What do I want?" and instead begin living according to, "This is just who I am." But identity isn't permanent. It's programmable. The moment those old patterns begin weakening, life starts feeling strangely unfamiliar. Maybe you've noticed it already. Conversations that once excited you now feel empty. Old dreams don't create the same emotional spark. Certain relationships begin fading naturally. Even your definition of success quietly changes. Many people panic during this stage because they mistake transition for failure. They think, "I've lost my passion. I don't know what I want anymore. I feel stuck." But often, you're not stuck. You're simply standing between two versions of yourself. Imagine climbing a mountain. There comes a point where the valley below is too far away to return comfortably, yet the summit still isn't visible. That middle space feels uncertain, not because you're lost, but because you're climbing. Personal transformation works exactly the same way. Before your external life changes, your internal foundation begins rebuilding itself. Your thoughts change. Your emotional responses change. Your expectations change. Eventually, your decisions change. And when your decisions change consistently, your reality has no choice but to follow this. This process rarely announces itself dramatically. There are no flashing lights, no perfect moment where everything suddenly makes sense. Instead, change begins quietly. One ordinary day, you realize you're no longer reacting the way you used to. Someone who once triggered anger now barely affects you. A problem that once consumed your attention now feels manageable. An opportunity appears that you would have ignored a year ago. These aren't coincidences. They're signs that your perception is evolving, and perception changes everything. Your brain doesn't experience reality exactly as it exists. It experiences reality through attention. Whatever your mind repeatedly focuses on becomes the world you notice. If your attention is locked onto fear, you'll constantly discover reasons to worry. If it's locked onto limitation, opportunities become invisible. But when your internal perspective begins expanding, reality appears different without the outside world necessarily changing first. This explains why two people can face identical circumstances, yet create completely different lives. The environment isn't always the deciding factor. The observer is many. Ancient philosophers understood this long before modern psychology. They believed external events gain meaning only through the mind interpreting them. Change the interpretation, and life itself changes. This is why genuine transformation isn't about forcing positive thinking. It's about becoming someone who naturally sees life differently. That shift cannot be faked. It develops gradually through awareness. As your awareness grows, old emotional habits lose their influence. You stop reacting automatically. You begin responding intentionally. And that single difference changes every future decision you make. Perhaps the strangest part of transformation is that motivation often disappears before clarity arrives. This scares people. Without constant urgency, they assume they're becoming less ambitious. But sometimes urgency disappears because your old goals no longer belong to the person you're becoming. Your nervous system is quietly withdrawing energy from a version of life you've already outgrown. It feels uncomfortable because your identity is being rewritten beneath conscious awareness. Think about how a snake sheds its skin. Before the old skin falls away, it becomes tight, restrictive, and uncomfortable. The discomfort isn't punishment. It's proof of growth. Human transformation follows a similar pattern. The life that once fit perfectly suddenly feels too small. The routines that once defined you no longer inspire you. Your mind begins searching for something deeper, even if it can't yet explain what that is. Most people resist this phase. They rush to replace uncertainty with another plan, another goal, another distraction, another reason to stay busy. But constant activity isn't always progress. Sometimes silence accomplishes what endless effort never could, because clarity rarely appears while you're forcing it. It appears when your mind finally has room to notice what has been quietly changing all along. Maybe this season of your life isn't asking you to become someone completely different. Maybe it's inviting you to stop pretending you're still the person you've already outgrown. That realization changes everything. Because once your identity shifts, your decisions naturally begin reflecting that new version of yourself. And every decision becomes the foundation of a completely different future. The greatest transformation doesn't happen when your external world changes. It happens when your inner state changes first. Most people believe manifestation is about getting something new, but lasting change begins when you stop resisting who you already are. When you finally release the constant need to control every outcome, life starts to feel different. Decisions become clearer. Opportunities appear more naturally. You stop forcing answers and begin recognizing them when they arrive. This isn't magic. It's what happens when your mind is no longer overwhelmed by fear, urgency, or endless prediction. Modern psychology shows that a calm nervous system makes better decisions than a stressed one. When your brain isn't trapped in survival mode, it becomes more creative, flexible, and open to possibilities. Instead of reacting to every challenge, you respond with clarity. That shift alone can completely change the direction of your life. Many people think confidence comes from achieving success. In reality, confidence often comes from trusting yourself before success appears. When you stop waiting for external proof, you begin creating internal stability. That stability influences your habits, your conversations, your choices, and eventually your results. This is why trying harder is not always the answer. Constant effort can become another form of fear. It keeps telling your mind that something is missing. Real growth begins when your actions come from purpose instead of panic. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack every single day. After years, you forget how heavy it is because you've become used to it. Then one day you finally take it off. Nothing dramatic happens. You simply realize how much lighter you feel. That's exactly what releasing mental resistance is like. The world hasn't changed overnight, but your experience of it has. As you move forward, there will still be uncertainty. There will still be moments when things don't happen exactly as planned. The difference is that uncertainty no longer controls you. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" you begin asking, "What can I learn from this moment?" This mindset creates resilience. It allows you to adapt instead of break under pressure. Every challenge becomes information instead of evidence that you're failing. Many successful thinkers throughout history have shared a similar principle. They understood that lasting achievement begins with mastering your inner world. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions move in the same direction, life feels less like a struggle and more like a natural progression. That doesn't mean you stop setting goals. It means your goals no longer define your worth. You can pursue success without becoming emotionally dependent on it. You work because you're inspired, not because you're afraid. Ironically, this is when progress often accelerates. People notice your confidence. New relationships appear. Unexpected opportunities arrive. Not because the universe suddenly changed the rules, but because you're finally making decisions from a place of clarity instead of fear. Your future isn't created in one dramatic moment. It's built through thousands of small choices made every single day. Each calm decision, each patient response, each moment you choose trust over panic, slowly shapes the life you're creating. Remember, growth isn't about becoming someone completely different. It's about removing the beliefs and habits that have been hiding your best self all along. When you stop fighting yourself, your energy becomes available for something much more important: building the life you've always wanted. So instead of asking whether the future will work out, ask yourself a better question, Who do I become when I stop living in fear? Because the moment you answer that question through your actions, your future begins changing naturally. The greatest breakthrough isn't forcing life to move faster. It's becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to chase every outcome. When that happens, success stops feeling distant. It starts feeling inevitable.